From the fight of our ancestors we learned. In their resilience we stood. In their yearning for justice we cried. They tried to silence us. They tried to suppress us. They tried to stop us from achieving, but y'all should know. We don't give up easily. We push it on joyfully. Undo our chains with the power of truth-telling, with the power of activism. We sing songs of victory. In spite of racism, in spite of discrimination, in spite of anti-black racism, but y'all should know. We don't give up easily. They tried to take us out of history, but we thrived. In spite of rejection, we strive for perfection, because we believe in resurrection, the ability to rise from the dust and emerge like the dawn of a new day. Together we stand. We are the iron nails nailed into the roots of this country. This country is just as much ours as it is yours. And together we stand.
Powerful words from spoken word artist Damini Owega in Cherrybrook, Nova Scotia. That's part of her poem titled Together We Stand. Hello, I'm Asha Tomlinson, and this is Being Black in Canada. In the next half hour, we'll be highlighting many aspects of the Black Canadian experience. We'll look at the past, take stock of the present, and share diverse perspectives on the future. It was 25 years ago that Canada's first female Black member of Parliament, Jean Augustine, put forward a motion to recognize February as Black History Month. She wanted the Black community to be seen, to be heard, to be equal. Those themes remain today. In fact, the calls are louder than ever before. The killing of Breonna Taylor and George Floyd in the U.S. fueled the Black Lives Matter movement worldwide. It ignited a racial reckoning. We asked activists on the front lines about the future they imagine now.
What do we want? Justice! When do we want it? Now!
What has yet to be seen is the mass change and the mass transformation of our systems that we have asked for. When I think about 2021, now we have the opportunity to lay down infrastructure, to lay down the bricks and mortar of a BLM movement that we can lead for generations.
It's about ending the kind of violence that actually is abandoning so many people living in Canada to poverty, people living with mental health issues, and it's about actually reinvesting public wealth in supporting people.
We start by, popular education, investing in education, because, it starts in our schools.
For us to achieve the sort of utopia that we're asking for requires a radical shift in the way that we do everything.
From activists to artists, many people are envisioning what's next, exploring the road to progress. The CBC's Eli Glasner has that story.
Does anything ever change, actually?
21 Black Futures is a series of monologues exploring the future of being Black.
Is this where you had me?
Theater director Mombi Tandiaba Otu says the death of George Floyd and the protests that followed had her looking forward.
Just as a way to heal, as a way to imagine something different beyond the intensity of the moment that we were in.
She recruited 21 of Canada's best Black directors, playwrights, and actors.
Do I put on my professional work voice? Or how I spit on the Black voice?
Actor Lovell Adams-Gray stars in the piece The Death News, a near-future scenario where a young man eulogizes himself. It left him thinking of who tells Black stories.
And how important it is to, bring in the broader scope of the full picture.
As a Black actor, he says the industry is improving.
Honestly, the frustration now that comes is like, God damn, that happened already.
But in some parts of Canada, opportunity lags behind, such as in Calgary, where Black, Indigenous, and actors of color are at a disadvantage.
White artists are overrepresented in the industry. And there's even an income disparity between those artists because BIPOC artists are not getting leading roles.
While many arts organizations are now taking a more inclusive approach, there are fears it's a fad.
That once we get back to needing to fill those houses and wanting to check, hit those box office records, we may return to old patterns.
This is great, though.
But Lovell says there's no going back. He points to the acclaim around the new film Judas and the Black Messiah and BBC's Small Axe series.
It's a testament to what we're craving for. We're craving for truthful, passionate, deep art.
A vision of a future worth waiting for. Eli Glasner, CBC News, Toronto.
Edmonton actor Jesse Lipscombe is also hoping to inspire change. He's keeping the spotlight on anti-Black racism through a social media campaign.
Hi, Jesse Lipscombe here. Here's the thing, we're talking Black history. I feel very, very grounded and clear of what I'm supposed to do. I'm on your wall, and that's a nice feeling. I'm Jesse Lipscombe, the founder of Make It Awkward. What does it really mean?
It's a campaign against racism, hate, and discrimination, capturing national attention. And why the name, Make It Awkward?
It's kind of I'm urging people to do that, to make and have awkward conversations. That's the place you need to be in, feel that awkwardness, and try and make some change. You need some water.
Jesse shifted from acting to activism after an incident in his hometown of Edmonton 4 years ago.
I was filming this commercial about how wonderful our city is. There's countless things you can do downtown before the big event and afterwards. In between takes, I was walking back and this car pulls up. Car pulls up and screams out of the window. Walk over to the car, open the door, get down on a knee. I got to the level that I talked to my children at because it felt like that needed to happen in this scenario. And I asked the gentleman, why did you say that?
Jesse's kids are fifth-generation Canadians, descendants of Alberta's Black pioneers. When I lived in Edmonton, that was the first time I learned of Alberta's Black settlers. How important is it to you to preserve that history?
First, kudos, because we got a stamp. The Amber Valley stamp, that's really, really special. It's so important because otherwise you will fall through the cultural cracks. The history that's often taught in school all the time doesn't really depict people who look like me.
That's why Jesse wants to continue elevating voices unheard with digital summits like these during the pandemic.
Tell him how you feel. I regard myself as a soldier of peace.
The community building starts with one person giving space to another.
You really want to be a part of the solution and try to fix this? Step up.
What's next for you?
A lot more living with purpose as best as I can, pushing the boundaries, not letting fear get in the way, not letting my own hurt feelings of the realities of today and tomorrow stop me either. I would tell you this, change moves at the speed of empathy. If we want to have change, the faster we can empathize with people who don't look like us, don't sound like us, don't talk like us, or walk like us, the faster we'll see this wonderful place that we're trying to get to.
There's a small church in St. Catharines, Ontario that has a huge historical significance. Abolitionist Harriet Tubman helped build this spiritual space more than 160 years ago, and now it's being preserved for future generations. CBC's Magda Gabriselase has the story.
In the city that was the last stop of the Underground Railroad, the church built by freed slaves still stands. Gracing its walls is the face of its most famous member, Harriet Tubman.
She's such a heroic figure. This is the church that our ancestors built, and this is the town that she resided in as an Underground Railroad conductor.
Rochelle Bush is the historian at Salem Chapel in St. Catharines, Ontario. For years, she's been sounding the alarm that this piece of history was in much need of repair.
It's the unevenness of the plank boards. We don't want anybody to trip over that. So you can see where they're separated.
Her prayers have now been answered. The church is the recipient of a $100,000 grant through the federal Supporting Black Canadian Communities initiative.
We're so grateful we received the money.
Money is also being used to honor Harriet Tubman's legacy south of the border. The U.S. Treasury announced it's moving forward with plans to put Tubman on the front of the American $20 bill. She will replace Andrew Jackson, the 7th U.S. president and a slave owner.
She's a representative American hero who deserves to be honored in such a way.
Author and historian Catherine Clinton says everyone needs to know what Tubman did.
She was one of the few who went south in order to bring people out, to rescue them from slavery and bring them all the way to freedom.
A trip she made more than a dozen times, helping dozens and possibly hundreds of people. Back at Salem Chapel, Bush knows all about that, and she can now rest easier knowing this church and Tubman's connection to it will be preserved for future generations. The renovations should take about a year. Magda Gebrselassie, CBC News, St. Catharines.
A Toronto artist is preserving history in his own right, and he's been doing it for decades. Robert Small uses paint and posters to educate Canadians on Black history.
Each year I feel empowered by someone's story. My name is Robert Small. I'm the artist behind the Legacy poster.
Robert's been producing the Legacy poster every Black History Month for almost 3 decades.
Robert, so good to see you.
It's really good.
Elbow.
Yeah,
Exactly.
right? Exactly.
I did that in 2006, so I'm very proud of it, obviously.
It's gorgeous. But it was important for you to feature Black Canadians for Black Canadians. Why did you start doing it way back when?
And I just kind of remembered when I was in grade 6 and I was so hungry for a positive image of a Black person, being the one Black child amongst like 30 white kids, right? The kids that I grew up with treated me well, but I still felt isolated based upon that reason inside. Knowing that I'm providing that image to someone that I didn't have on a national scale is very empowering.
I grew up knowing about your poster. My mom, has your posters in her home. Families like ours had your posters. Schools had your posters on display. Banks have your poster on display. How does that make you feel looking at it now and the reach that it's had?
Yeah, well, definitely, that basically has kept me going, knowing that I'm having a definite impact. It is definitely up to us to tell our own stories in our own way, because as the old adage goes, history is written by the victors.
Looking at this reckoning on race from 2020, has it changed the way you think about who you put on display?
Yeah, with respect to my poster this year, I feature people who fought against different issues with their life and persevered.
Robert believes depicting Black people in a positive light, documenting their stories, is helping to change the narrative. And the feedback from the community is evidence it's happening.
What's so amazing about the poster is that it really does serve as a living, breathing document that really archives the impact of so many African Canadians and their contributions, which sadly are missing from our textbooks.
I just really love the attention and the care that he puts into reproducing the images of these amazing Black Canadians.
What advice do you have for the next generation?
If you're going to make a contribution to the Black community or to society in general, to think of it as a long-term goal. It's like these things are not going to change overnight, but you just keep on going despite the negativity that you might feel within yourself, but also be empowered by the positive things that have occurred that keep you going.
And Robert hopes to keep going for years to come.
I'm going to ask everybody who has privilege to interrupt anti-Black racism, oppression, marginalization at every level, every moment that you can. It will be uncomfortable.
That's Adora Wofor, president of Black Lives Matter in Calgary, sharing her hopes for the movement. You can watch what other activists have to say on our website at cbc.ca/beingblack-in-Canada. As we mentioned earlier, it was 25 years ago that Member of Parliament Jean Augustine set in motion legislation that would officially recognize February as Black History Month. Here's how she remembers that time.
25 years ago, when I rose in the House of Commons,
to put the motion forward for Black History Month. The House of Commons was a different place, was a different chamber then than it is today. We had two new parties and political parties in the House, Preston Manning and the Reform Party, the Bloc Québécois for the very first time, and the Conservatives, who were down to Elsie Wayne and Jean Charest, and of course the NDP and the Liberals. Discussions around these issues that were called social issues were difficult to approach simply because we were into debt and deficit and all of those kinds of discussion. And so one comes up asking for social issues to deal with those people. It was not an easy question to put to individuals whose thinking were really not in that direction. And so to a certain extent, I was almost, in some instances, laughed out of the room. You know, you want February, who is going to come for March? When are we going to get White History Month after you take Black History Month? So it's those, I refer to them as provocateurs, trying to throw me off my game of getting conversations around the issue.
That was Jean Augustine remembering the origins of Black History Month. A military veteran and Legion president says being Black in the Maritimes comes with both challenges and opportunities. William Toussaint served in the Canadian Armed Forces for more than 2 decades. His family history dates back to the Underground Railroad, and yet he's still questioned about his roots in Canada. Here he is in his own words.
My name is William Toussaint, and I live in Stratford. Originally, I'm from Cape Breton. My mother's family came up through the Underground Railway. They were loyalists, and they came to Nova Scotia. Her father worked in the mines, and she was born in Glace Bay. My father's from Grenada in the West Indies, and they brought him here to work in the steel plant. The British brought a lot of their people from the colonies to work in the steel plant. A lot of the poorer people, they brought them from Ireland. There were people there from all over. You got to realize, in the Maritimes, it was classes that had not problems, so there was a lot of people joined the Army, Black or white, from the Maritimes, from PEI, Nova Scotia. So I decided to join the Army. I was a vehicle mechanic, and then I became a refrigeration mechanical systems technician. Growing up Black in Nova Scotia, I had a laugh when I joined the Army, and the guy says, what did you do for a summer job? So they didn't have a summer job. They didn't give us summer jobs. That was an issue with skin color. When I came to PEI, I was the only Black senior NCO on the base at that time. People were accepting. I mean, I wasn't a threat to anybody like they perceive now. Like, my job was on the base. I didn't take a job away from anybody, and I wasn't a threat to anybody. So it wasn't too bad for me personally. But I have a young Bahamian student, and I was talking to him, about his experience. He was telling me, when they were looking for rent apartment building, some of the landlords wouldn't rent to them. I went with him on a job, for a job. It was funny. And I walked in this place, and the guy said, "What do you want?" I said, we're here looking for a job." And he looked at me, he says, "Where you from? Where you from?" The way he said it. I said, "Listen, I was born in Cape Breton. I'm from here." I knew his boss. I said, "Who is your boss?" Then his whole demeanor changed, his whole outlook changed altogether. I mean, everybody doesn't like everybody in this world. Is an impossible thing, but just give me some respect. If you respect me, I respect you. And I'm not saying people can't have their own views or their own thoughts. They can, but as long as you don't have to harm people, or degrade them or belittle them.
That was William Toussaint in the Maritimes. We've now heard from a number of Black Canadians who are standing up and speaking out against anti-Black racism, pushing for change. And that includes Mayrin Patterson. The 15-year-old opens up about her personal journey and how she's ready to love the skin she's in.
When I was younger, it didn't feel like there was really a place for my Blackness to thrive in my own life. And the older I got, I had to juggle with figuring out my identity and consistent racist experiences. Figuring out why I was feeling upset about these things in my life was one of the first steps of loving myself within my Black identity, and reconnecting with my family and a broader Black community helped me gain confidence in myself as well. There is no right way to respond to racism, so if you feel angry or upset, that's okay too. Learning to advocate for myself is probably still the hardest part today. It can be really scary to stick up for yourself, but it is totally worth it. Being Black is a beautiful thing. The racism I deal with has caused me a lot of pain, but that doesn't make being Black any less wonderful.
I'm Asha Tomlinson, and thank you for watching this edition of Being Black in Canada. We leave you with the sounds of what many call the Black National Anthem. Lift every voice and sing.
Lift every voice and sing till earth and heaven ring. Ring with the harmonies of liberty. Let our rejoicing rise high as the listening skies. Let it resound loud as the rolling sea. Sing.